New York now as the city wakes up. Kristen Salumi there for us. And Kristen, I mistakenly said the attacks of 2011. Of course, it's almost 10 years ago, 2001. But for many New Yorkers this morning, looking at the headlines, it must almost feel as if it was yesterday.
It really brings back a lot of difficult memories for this city. And here's a sample of some of the newspapers. Got 'em. Vengeance at last. That's the New York Post, a conservative paper here in New York. The Wall Street Journal says U.S. forces kill Osama Bin Laden. Just a few of the headlines that New Yorkers are waking up to, but frankly, many of them knew about this last night. Word spread very quickly about the news that Osama Bin Laden was dead. New Yorkers responded by taking to the streets in Times Square, and here near Ground Zero, the street behind me for much of the night was blocked off by people celebrating, about 2,000 or so, I'd say, at the peak. As rush hour approached, police began moving people out of the street. You can see busy New Yorkers beginning their commute to work, coming by the site. We're also seeing a lot of people with cameras. If we pan over a little bit, you can see where the actual Ground Zero site is. First, you'll see all of the reporters from the national and international media who have gathered here. You'll see a yellow fence with cranes rising above it. That is where the World Trade Centers once stood, now an active construction site. And there are still people coming down here to take a look, to take pictures, and get a feel for this momentous occasion. During the night, it really was like a celebration. People were waving flags, chanting USA, breaking out into song, God Bless America. The people who came down here, many of them had lost a loved one on that fateful day. I spoke to a woman whose husband was killed in the North Tower, and she said that she never expected to hear Bin Laden was caught. She had almost given up on that, and she thought it wouldn't make a difference if he was caught. But much to her surprise, when she heard the news, she said she was overcome with this feeling of relief and a need to come down here to the place that many still refer to as Ground Zero. And part of that draw is the fact that her husband, there are never any remains found for her husband, like many of the victims here. And so that for many, this is the burial spot. And there's few people who were living in New York that day that don't remember it and weren't deeply affected by it. So all of those emotions came back as President Obama announced that Osama bin Laden was indeed dead. And I can tell you that you would hear random cheers throughout the city in various neighborhoods and apartment buildings. It just took people that strongly, that quickly. Everybody knew it was a big thing and it was a big deal. And they wanted to come out and show how happy they were to know that he was finally gone.
So close to where you're standing, Kristen, there are small memorials ahead of the finishing of the big one right next to the building that you showed us. But there's the cross that you mentioned earlier on. Tell us a bit more about that. There's the small museum, there's the church where people go to say prayers. The whole area is a shrine.
It is indeed, and it still draws tourists on a daily basis. And that even without the formal 9/11 memorial being open, there's a temporary memorial on the street behind me that houses many artifacts from the site, pictures of victims, the signs that were posted along the church fence, which is also behind me on the other side of the street. That was a place where people came to gather, post signs looking for their loved ones who were missing. Many people held out hope for days that somehow someone that didn't come home was still alive in someplace, so they would post signs for the missing. The cross that you mentioned, it's referred to as the Ground Zero cross. It was found amid the ruins, steel beams from the buildings that were left there and cut very much in the shape of a Christian cross. That's planted on the sidewalk just a little bit north of me here, unfortunately around a truck, so I can't show it to you. But this whole area very much very full of sentimental locations and a draw, as I said, for tourists. The formal museum, the official 9/11 memorial, is due to open this September on the 10th anniversary of that date. And from the people I've spoken to, particularly those who have lost a loved one or did lose a loved one on that day, they're saying that this anniversary is definitely going to be different as a result of this news.
Kristen Salumi, thank you very much indeed. Live for us, very close to Ground Zero.